Fear is not a failure. It is a feeling. A human response to uncertainty, to change, to the unknown. Everyone feels fear at times. Even people of faith. Even people who trust God deeply. Feeling fear does not mean you lack faith. It means you are human. Fear often shows up when something matters. When you are standing at the edge of change. When you are asked to step into something new. Fear is information. It tells you that you care. But fear is not direction. It can alert you, but it cannot lead you. Because fear always focuses on what might go wrong. God's guidance focuses on what is being formed. You don't need to eliminate fear to walk with God. You only need to remember who is guiding you. Fear can walk beside you, but it does not get to decide. Direction comes from God, and God is greater than anything you fear. Fear often feels convincing because it speaks quickly. It doesn't wait. It doesn't pause. It rushes your thoughts before you have time to breathe. Fear presents possibilities as certainties. What if this goes wrong? What if you fail? What if you lose something important? And because the questions sound urgent, they feel true. But urgency is not wisdom. Fear convinces by narrowing your vision. It shows you one outcome, the worst one, and asks you to make a decision based on that alone. God's guidance is different. It widens your perspective. It invites you to consider more than one outcome, more than one possibility, more than one future. Fear speaks loudly, but it does not speak wisely. It reacts to uncertainty instead of resting within it. That is why fear feels powerful, not because it is right, but because it is fast. God does not compete with fear by shouting louder. He leads with steadiness, with calm, with presence. When fear pressures you to decide quickly, it is often a sign to slow down. Because what comes from God does not need panic to move you forward. You are allowed to pause, to breathe, to step back from the urgency fear creates. Fear may feel convincing, but that does not make it trustworthy. Direction requires clarity, and clarity grows in calm spaces. Fear does not usually ask for permission. It steps in quietly and begins making suggestions. Small ones at first. Maybe wait. Maybe don't risk it. Maybe this isn't the right time. And because these thoughts sound reasonable, they often go unnoticed. Fear rarely says, "Stop everything." More often it says, "Be careful. Play it safe. Don't move yet." There is nothing wrong with being careful. But there is a difference between wisdom and fear in disguise. Fear-based decisions are usually motivated by avoidance, avoiding discomfort, avoiding uncertainty, avoiding the possibility of loss. God-led decisions are motivated by trust. Trust that you are not alone. Trust that God can guide you even if the path is unfamiliar. When fear decides for you, life slowly becomes smaller. So, you notice fewer possibilities. You delay things that once mattered. You begin living in response to what you want to avoid instead of what you are called to build. This is not because you are weak. It is because fear feels protective. But protection without direction leads to stagnation. God does not lead you by shrinking your life. He leads you by strengthening your trust. You don't need to shame yourself for moments when fear took the lead. Awareness is enough to begin changing direction. You can pause and ask a gentle question. Is this choice helping me move forward with God, or helping me avoid discomfort? That question brings clarity without pressure. Fear may speak, but it does not get the final word. Direction belongs to God, and God leads with peace, not avoidance. Pomia, your feelings matter. They are real. They carry information about what is happening inside you. Ignoring feelings does not bring peace. But following every feeling does not bring direction either. Feelings change quickly. They rise and fall. They respond to tiredness, to stress, to memories, to uncertainty. What feels true in the morning can feel very different by night. Mukro. That is why feelings, while valid, are not stable enough to lead your life. Fear may tell you, stop. Doubt may tell you, you're not ready. Anxiety may tell you, something is wrong. But feelings speak from reaction, not from vision. God's direction comes from a place of steadiness. Not rushed, not pressured, not overwhelmed. So, when you let feelings lead, your path keeps changing with every emotional shift. That creates exhaustion, confusion, restlessness. God invites you to acknowledge what you feel without handing it control. You can say, I feel afraid, without deciding from fear. You can say, I feel unsure, without stopping your journey. You can say, I feel anxious, and still choose trust. Peace does not come from eliminating feelings. It comes from placing them in the right position. Feelings inform. God directs. When direction comes from God, your steps become steadier, even when emotions fluctuate. And that steadiness brings rest to the soul. Fear often doesn't arrive to destroy faith. It arrives to replace it. Slowly, quietly, almost unnoticed. Iku, you still believe in God. You still pray. You still want to trust. But fear begins to guide your expectations. It shapes how far you think you can go, what you think is possible, what you quietly stop asking for. Fear doesn't say, stop believing. It says, don't expect too much. Don't hope too deeply. Don't trust fully. Yeah. And before you realize it, faith is still present, but it's no longer leading. Fear is. Faith and fear cannot guide at the same time. One will always take the lead. And the one that leads determines the direction of your life. Faith opens space. Fear narrows it. Faith allows movement even when the outcome is unclear. Fear demands certainty before taking a step. God does not call you to live carefully protected from disappointment. He calls you to live guided by trust. Trust does not eliminate risk. It places risk in God's hands. When fear replaces faith, life becomes smaller, not safer. Faith does not rush you, but it does invite you to keep moving. You don't need to force faith to make fear disappear. You only need to gently return faith to its rightful place. Let fear speak if it needs to, but let God decide. Because direction belongs to God alone. Panic is loud. It rushes your thoughts. It tightens your chest. It tells you that everything must be decided now. But panic is never how God speaks. God does not hurry you. He does not push you into decisions made from fear. His guidance carries steadiness. Even when the path is unclear, even when answers are incomplete. Panic demands immediate action. God invites intentional movement. There is a difference. When fear takes over, your body reacts first. Your breathing shortens. Your mind jumps ahead to outcomes that haven't happened. God meets you differently. He slows you down before asking you to move. He brings your attention back to the present moment. Back to what is real. Back to what is within your control. If a decision feels driven by panic, it is worth pausing. Pausing is not disobedience. It is wisdom. God's direction is marked by peace, not because everything feels easy, but because your spirit feels steady. Peace does not mean the absence of challenge. It means the absence of pressure to act before you are ready. God does not require you to outrun your fear. He invites you to walk with Him through it. When you move with God, even difficult steps carry calm. That calm is a sign you are being guided, not rushed. Not every hesitation is fear. And not every pause means you lack faith. There is such a thing as healthy caution. Caution listens. It observes. It considers timing, context, and responsibility. Fear, on the other hand, does not listen. It reacts. It assumes danger before understanding the situation. Caution asks, what is wise right now? Fear asks, what if everything goes wrong? Caution brings clarity. Fear brings tension. When caution guides you, your body feels steady. Your thoughts slow down. You can think clearly about next steps. When fear controls you, your body tightens. Your thoughts race. Everything feels urgent and overwhelming. Caution still allows movement. It simply asks you to move with care. Fear freezes, or pushes you to retreat completely. God often uses caution to protect you. But He never uses fear to control you. If something is from God, it will invite discernment, not paralysis. Or it will create awareness, not dread. You don't need to rush decisions to prove faith. And you don't need to avoid decisions to feel safe. God's guidance sits between recklessness and avoidance. It is steady. It is grounded. It is patient. Learning this difference brings freedom. Because you no longer confuse wisdom with fear, or fear with caution. 1. You begin to trust that God can guide you without overwhelming you. And that trust brings rest to your soul. Fear always reduces. It narrows your options. It limits your vision. It convinces you to stay within smaller boundaries. Not because you lack ability, but because you imagine loss. Fear whispers, don't try. Don't risk. Don't step out. Over time, life becomes quieter, but not in a peaceful way. it becomes restricted. Safe, perhaps, but smaller. Faith moves differently. Faith does not deny risk. It simply refuses to let risk define destiny. Faith opens possibilities. It allows growth. It creates room for joy to enter. Where fear builds walls, faith opens doors. Sisimur. Where fear says, stay where you are, faith says, take one step. Not 10 steps. Not a leap. Just one honest step forward. Fear calculates loss. Faith considers purpose. Fear focuses on control. Faith focuses on trust. When you live guided by fear, your world becomes smaller without you noticing. When you live guided by faith, your heart becomes wider. More bom. You begin to see opportunities instead of threats. Possibilities instead of obstacles. Growth instead of danger. God did not design you to live confined by imagined outcomes. He designed you to walk forward with trust. Fear may walk beside you, but it cannot limit what God intends for you. Faith expands your life because it anchors you in something greater than what you fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in the presence of it. Many people wait for fear to disappear before they take a step. But fear rarely disappears before obedience begins. You don't need a fearless heart to move forward. You need a willing one. A heart that says, I'm afraid, but I trust God more. Fear may walk beside you, but it does not have authority. Authority belongs to God. And God does not wait for you to feel strong before guiding you. Some of the most meaningful steps you will ever take will be taken while your hands tremble, while your voice feels uncertain, while your mind still carries questions. That does not mean you are unprepared. It means you are human. Faith is not boldness without emotion. It is trust despite emotion. When you move forward while afraid, you teach your fear its proper place. You remind it that it can inform, but it cannot decide. God strengthens you as you walk, not before. Strength often arrives mid-step. Clarity often comes after obedience. Peace often grows as you continue. You do not need to conquer fear to follow God. You only need to keep moving with Him. And each small step taken in trust makes fear quieter over time. Not because it vanishes, but because it loses control. Trust is not a feeling. It is a decision. A steady choice made over and over again. You may still feel fear in your chest, in your thoughts, in your questions. But trust does not wait for those sensations to disappear. Trust chooses direction even when emotion resists it. You can say, I feel afraid, and still say, I will follow God. That is maturity. Not dramatic bravery. Not loud confidence. But quiet alignment. Trust means you believe that God sees further than you do. That He understands what you cannot yet understand. That He protects in ways you may not notice immediately. Fear focuses on outcomes. Trust focuses on relationship. Fear asks, what if I fail? Trust says, God will not abandon me. When you trust God while fear is still present, you are strengthening your spirit. You are teaching your heart that God is greater than your worst-case scenarios. Trust does not require certainty. It requires surrender. Not surrender to fear, but surrender to God. You do not need to feel ready to be guided. You only need to remain open. Ikai. Fear may speak, but trust chooses. And when trust chooses God, peace begins to follow, slowly, steadily, deeply. You do not need to know the entire path. You only need clarity for the next step. Fear tries to show you the whole road at once. Every possible problem. Every potential loss. Every imagined failure. And when you look at all of it, it feels overwhelming. God does not overwhelm. He illuminates just enough for the next step. Peace is often subtle. It does not shout. It does not pressure. It gently steadies your spirit. Peace feels grounded, clear, stable. When you are guided by peace, you may still feel uncertainty, but not chaos. You may still have questions, but not panic. You may still sense risk, but not dread. God's direction carries calm confidence. Not loud certainty. Not dramatic signs. Just steady assurance. Sometimes the next step is small. A conversation. A decision. A boundary. A prayer. A pause. Peace helps you move without rushing. Without forcing outcomes. Without trying to control what belongs to God. Fear demands certainty before action. Peace allows movement with trust. You don't need to solve the future tonight. You only need to listen for peace in this moment. And when you find it, follow it. One step at a time. God's peace is enough to carry you forward. Fear predicts, but it does not create. It imagines outcomes, but it cannot determine destiny. Your future is not built by the loudest thought in your mind. It is built by the direction you choose. Fear often paints tomorrow in darker colors. It assumes the worst. It magnifies uncertainty. But God does not design futures based on fear's imagination. He builds them on purpose, on calling, on growth. There will always be unknowns. But unknown does not mean unsafe. It simply means you are not meant to control everything. Fear wants guarantees. Faith accepts guidance. Your life is not fragile because you feel afraid sometimes. It is resilient because God is involved in it. You are not one decision away from destroying your future. God's grace is larger than a wrong step. Larger than hesitation. Larger than delay. Fear exaggerates consequences. God strengthens character. Fear tells you everything depends on you. Faith reminds you that you are not alone in building your life. Your future is shaped by consistent trust, not by temporary fear. By steady obedience, not emotional waves. God works beyond your feelings, beyond your worries, beyond your worst predictions. Fear cannot rewrite what God has written. And what God writes is not fragile. It is sustained by purpose, protected by grace, carried by love. You are moving forward even when you cannot see it clearly. Growth is often invisible while it is happening. But one day you will look back and realize fear never had the authority you thought it did. When most people think about courage, they imagine something dramatic. A bold decision. A loud declaration. A fearless leap. But real courage is often much quieter. It looks like showing up when you don't feel ready. It looks like trying again after disappointment. It looks like speaking honestly even when your voice shakes. Courage is not intensity. It is consistency. It is choosing the right direction again and again, even when fear is present. Fear wants you to wait until you feel strong. Courage says, strength grows as I move. You do not need perfect confidence to act with courage. You need clarity about who guides you. And if God guides you, you are not walking alone. Small courage changes lives. A small prayer when you feel overwhelmed. A small boundary when something feels wrong. A small step forward when everything in you wants to retreat. Courage does not remove fear. It does not. But it refuses to surrender to it. And the more you practice small courage, the less control fear has. Not because fear disappears, but because your trust deepens. God does not require spectacular bravery. He invites faithful steps, one at a time. That is enough. There is a difference between strength and constant tension. Many people believe they must always be fighting something. Fighting fear, magi. Fighting doubt. Fighting uncertainty. But living in constant battle exhausts the soul. God does not ask you to wrestle fear every hour. He invites you to rest in His authority. Fear becomes smaller when you stop treating it like an enemy that must be defeated daily. Sometimes strength is not confrontation. Sometimes strength is surrender to God's control. You do not need to analyze every fearful thought. You do not need to correct every anxious feeling. You can acknowledge it, and then place it in God's hands. Rest is not weakness. It is trust without tension. When you rest, you are declaring that God is capable without your constant defense. Fear tries to keep you alert at all times. God allows you to breathe, to release, to stop rehearsing what might go wrong. You are not created to live in survival mode. You were created to live in trust. There is peace available when you stop fighting what God has already overcome. And in that peace, fear loses its intensity. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding it. God carries what you release, and He carries it better than you ever could. Feeling fear does not make you weak. It makes you human. Fear is a response, not a definition. It may visit your mind. It may tighten your chest. It may whisper worst-case scenarios. But it does not have the authority to name you. You are not the anxious one. You are not the fragile one. You are not the one who always struggles. You are a person being shaped in real time, growing, learning, strengthening. Fear is a moment. It is not your identity. God defines you by purpose, not by emotion. By calling, not by temporary struggle. There have been days when fear felt louder than faith. And yet, you are still here. Still standing. Still seeking. Still listening. That is strength. Not dramatic strength, but steady strength. Fear may pass through you, but it cannot rewrite who you are becoming. You are not defined by the thoughts that scare you. You are defined by the direction you choose. And when you choose to keep trusting God, even with trembling hands, you are becoming stronger than you realize. Fear does not define you. God does. And what He says about you is not fragile. It is steady. It is enduring. It is secure. Malmay, fear will visit every human life. No one walks through this world without moments of uncertainty. But fear was never meant to lead your life. It may speak. It may appear in quiet moments. It may try to imagine the worst. But its voice is not your direction. Direction belongs to God. And God's voice is not rushed. Not pressured. Not overwhelming. His guidance brings steadiness, peace, clarity, even when the future is not fully visible. You do not need to eliminate fear to walk with God. You only need to remember who truly leads you. Fear may appear along the path, but it cannot rewrite what God is building in you. Your life is not guided by your worst thoughts. It is guided by God's faithfulness. And that faithfulness does not change with your emotions. Somewhat, it remains steady. Day after day. Step after step. So if fear has been loud lately, take a slow breath. And remember this. Fear is a feeling. But it is not your direction. God still is. And He is able to guide you through every uncertain step ahead. If this moment brought a little peace to your heart, you are welcome here. Okay. And if you need another quiet moment later, this space will still be here. Take care of your soul. And remember, you are never walking alone.